Sure. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to, well, it's a special edition of What's on Your Mind. This one is brought to you by ACS Roofing. I have two guests in the studio with me today. I think you know both the names. First one is former County Commissioner Sean Cavanagh, and the other one is former top-notch ace #1 reporter from the Herald-Standard here in Uniontown, Paul Sunyak. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Russ. Nice to see you.
Good.
Your smiling face, the sun is shining. We picked that song from Cheers. Not everything is doom and gloom in the world, but we have to deal with the dark and the light in this world.
Yep.
And so I wanted to do this show, and I was his former county commissioner, but you were a mild-mannered reporter, Clark Kent.
He's a very smart man.
Paul, real quick, before we go, I need you to confirm or deny a rumor that I'm going to start in about 10 seconds here, that you're in negotiations with Bob Nutting to buy the Herald-Standard back and restore journalism back into Fayette County.
If I ever hit the Powerball, that might be done.
That might be the case.
And there'd be some change.
Okay.
There would be some changes around here.
I don't know. I think he still has his communion money. He might be able to pay for it.
Big time changes.
Okay, so in the short term, anyway, that's you're denying that rumor.
Yeah, until I hit the Powerball.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So, the reason I wanted to do this show, I've been traveling in my business, and I've worked throughout Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, D.C., a lot of exciting things down in Florida. And, I just see a lot of things going on in Fayette County. They're going the wrong way. So I kind of wanted to do a state of the county from my perspective. I've been out of the loop. And the reason I wanted to bring Paul Sunyak in, and I have to say, Paul Sunyak, he's a friend of mine, but I met him through journalism, being a reporter. If you remember way back when, in the Fayette County Housing Authority days, and there was crime and shootings going next to Laurel Highlands High School, I got involved, and I kind of warned the community, tried to get involved, and then saw somebody get shot at my mother's house, and then I really put the heat on the Fayette County Housing Authority, and Paul Sunyak and the Herald-Standard, Mike Ellis, they did an investigative story, and that's how I first.
Not they, me.
Yeah. Paul did a story, and
everything fell into place after that.
There you go.
On the Fayette County Housing Authority, eventually I went to a public meeting. By the way, I'm a military. By the way, you didn't notice my shirt.
Penn State.
All right. Well, we got to talk about that. But anyways, back to the story, and the Herald-Standard unleashed an investigative report, and thank goodness, one person can make a difference, but it also takes a village, it takes a community, and with Paul's reporting, there were indictments. The executive director, no names, not necessary, went to jail, FBI investigation. I was arrested for public speaking. I had a lawsuit against him. I won, but I was on a Saturday, I was at a meet. This is how I met Paul. They had a public meeting on a Saturday, and I got arrested for public speaking. Here I am, a military person. My parents were military, and I got arrested. And community activist arrested. Paul Sunyak eventually wins. I don't know. I think he's got a house full of golden quills.
Too many.
And a golden quill, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, means that the Pennsylvania Newspapers Association gives awards to great journalism and great investigative journalism. And Paul won 5 1 year, I think, or more than the Tribune Review. But anyways,
can I just say something about that? To me, that was a textbook case of what journalism could and should do and be. Heretofore, I mean, the Herald Standard didn't do that type of work. And it's one of the travails of the profession, especially in a small town. And you mentioned nutting and the Herald Standard now, which is a shell of what it should be or used to be, for sure. And it's sad to me. But in those days, there still was, why are you putting this guy's picture in the paper? Why are you putting Sean Cavanagh's name in the paper? And I actually had somebody higher up in the county apparatus, I won't mention names or anything, called me to the office, his office, and I think you're being used here. How do you mean? Well, this Cavanagh guy, he's he's putting his name in the paper, he's getting all this credit for things, he's getting all his opinions out there. I said, well, he comes to the meeting and he stands up and he says, this is what's going on, and this is what, there's gunfire, there's crime in Lemonwood Acres. You think that I haven't talked to anybody else up there about that? I've been in people's houses. I went up there and interviewed the little old ladies who were afraid to go to their mailbox to verify what he was saying. I talked to them. Do you hear gunfire? Do you see drugs? Their names didn't need to be mentioned. They didn't want to be mentioned because they didn't want to be in trouble.
Sure.
So this was all vetted before it ever got into the paper. And I remember saying, well, look, he's the only one. Well, okay, does it matter that he's the only one that comes to the meeting? He's a citizen of Fayette County. That's all that it takes. He's allowed to come criticize his government. And I don't have the test in my drawer at work that says you must pass this test in order to criticize the Fayette County Housing Authority.
Yeah, you have these boxes you have to check off.
Do you have it in yours? And this person said, no, I don't. I said, case closed. That's the way it's going to be. But one person can make a difference if they do speak up. And I've said that repeatedly throughout my time. One school board member, one audience member at the school board meeting can speak up and expose something, and it can make a difference on what does get done or what doesn't get done.
Absolutely. And I went to Turkey. The boy that was shot, Sean Smith, died on New Year's Day. I was in Istanbul, Turkey, visiting my friend from college, and it was pretty sad to see something like that. But the fact is, one person can make a difference. But there's a thing, the different estates. Paul, do you know the 4 estates? But the one estate that I think...
No, I'm totally ignorant of the fourth estate.
Asking... No, I can't think at the top of my head. I know what the 4th estate is, and the 4th estate is, there's many things that are pillars in the United States, but what are the 4 states?
I think it's the executive branch, the judicial, and the congressional or the legislative.
And you have the news.
I think those are the first 3. I think.
Yeah, you're right. It's the 3 branches of government plus
the 4th estate is the
freedom of press. And one of the problems that, as you mentioned about nutting, and newspapers in general across America are in decline, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The internet and loss of advertising revenue. Well, hey, WMBS, without us paying for ads and Action ACS Roofing, this helps keep the lights on. But when you don't have, one of the problems are that guys like Paul Sunyak and gals out there, there's just not enough of them. We're seeing on the national level, hey, Mike Wallace, CBS, 60 Minutes, you see the big, what do they call them, the big NBC, ABC.
Yeah.
But on the local level.
The legacy media.
Yeah, and so I started going to housing authority meetings, speaking up because people were getting shot. It was a disaster happening, and this is Uniontown. I mean, we had people from New York and Ohio coming in dealing drugs, and nobody was doing anything. And so I got involved, and then it blew up. As Paul said, a lot of times people in power, Nixon, Fayette County Housing Authority, they want to silence their critics, and that's a bad thing. So right now, I have to give credit to WMBS. I'm not sucking up, but you guys are recording meetings. You're putting them online. People can watch them 24 hours a day. But I think the big thing that's happened in Fayette County now, I don't know if you want to add to that, but the big thing that's happened is this 28% tax increase. People are just ticked off, mad, including myself, and this is why I've kind of gotten back involved, because tax and spending out of control, and there's a lot of issues. I don't know if you want to add to that, Paul.
What I would say is, I did see this first on WMBS covering the meeting when this tax hike was proposed as part of the proposed budget. And, as a former reporter who used to cover county government, I see that the story said, and this is a very germane point, a shortcoming of modern journalism, and not having institutional knowledge, or not having the guts to do it the right way. But it says like the commissioners are proposing, I believe it was a 1.5 mil increase. I think it was 1.5. It might have been 0.5, but that's not the main point. Okay. When you go with a millage increase, they like to do that. The township supervisors prefer it. The school district prefers
because
it.
nobody knows
because
what
nobody
a mill
knows
is.
what that means.
Yeah.
So you can go from 100 mills to 101 mills, and that's a 1% tax hike on the taxpayer. If you go from 1 to 2, 1 mil to 2 mil, you're doubling it. It's 100%, right?
Right.
So I quickly did the math, and I did respond to the WMBS where you can make comments, and I said I proposed 28% tax hike. And I think they took it down to 26 before they passed the final budget, which is another little trick. Well, it's not as bad as it was before, so we did a great job finding stuff to cut. But you have to have institutional knowledge and know how to do that math to really bring it home. So when people then read it, 1.5 mils sounds like it's 1.5% to most people, doesn't it? 1.5 mils really could be 28%. Then suddenly, 28% tax hike. That's the job that a newspaper needs to do. That's a job a newspaper should do. And so Sean and I have talked about this on the phone a few times, and sometimes I wish I was back in that seat again as a public service, but you're 66 years old, you don't have the time to do it. But the budget is passed. These days at a meeting, the commissioners can say, well, we did all that we could to cut the budget. Is there any independent verification of that? Is there any reporter poring over that budget and comparing it to last year's budget or 2 years ago budget to say, wait a minute, you have this big increase in this office. What is it for? I'm not saying there weren't legitimate reasons to raise some taxes. That happens, right?
Right.
But
absolutely,
but there's nobody really out there questioning, and this is the job of a reporter, is to hold people accountable. And you can be friendly with people that you cover, but I don't think you can ever really be friends with them, including this guy. I mean, Sean and I had some pretty powerful rows when he was a commissioner, call me on the phone in the office, and I'd say, no, you don't tell me what to do or whatever. We had some big arguments. But that's not unique. I mean, you always have people trying to push you, and they don't like the story that you did. Elected official people in the public, whatever. So you have these kind of stand your ground moments with all of them.
And then they want to kill the messenger, kill the reporter, make things up. But they don't like the criticism. But when I was elected in 1996, part of my, thank goodness the Herald Standard covered my.
It was 95, Sean.
Yeah, but I was sworn in 96. Thanks, Russ. Yeah,
there you go.
And check your.
Oh, I know. I was there. It was. It was the election of '95.
You mentioned the voting meeting, Paul, where they raised the taxes. I watched the proceedings online. I also had a copy of the agenda in front of me, which I meant to bring today and I forgot to print it out again. But regardless, so I'm looking at the agenda, and it goes public comments, and then there's a couple other items, and it was like fourth or fifth listed on the agenda was approval of 2025 general budget. That's how the agenda listed. The meeting starts, we go through these public comments, which, it lasted 45 minutes, almost an hour of public comments, all pertaining to the budget. They finally finished that budget. What did they do? They skipped down to voting. They immediately went to vote on the budget. That was a big slap in the face, as far as I'm concerned, to everybody in that room that spoke up to the commissioners, expressing their views. Everybody that in the county, quite frankly, that was a slap in the face. It's like, I don't care. We're going to do this anyway. Was the attitude that
Public
came across.
Be damned.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I have to add to that, I was watching Spielberg's show on Lincoln, and it said malice towards none and charity for all. And charity, Grim Krupa, for one of the first times I can remember, a state representative blasting the CDs and Dunn for this 28% tax increase. I was very impressed that she came to the meeting, used her, her voice to stand out. And I can't remember a state representative coming to a meeting like that and just admonishing the two county commissioners, Vince Vacides and Scott Dunn. I'm calling Vince tax some of the CDs, and Scott, shop till you drop done, Who do I sound like?
Well,
yeah.
my 2 cents on that would be like, I saw some of that video. I watched it, just skipping through because I can't watch the whole hour or whatever.
Yeah.
But, it's fairly typical. Well, we cut all that we could. And this is what we had.
Yeah.
That's what I was told. That's what I saw
Yeah.
just as a taxpayer. And I'm like, well, if I'm a reporter, the first thing I'm going to do is run up and say, show me. And again, I didn't do the work, but you have to have knowledge of the budget and do the hard. Reporting is hard work, Russ. It's just not you pull the stuff out of your butt. You know what I mean? To go out there and analyze assessments like I did when Fayette County had a reassessment when Sean was a commissioner. I spent more time in Jim Hersick's office than probably the commissioners did. Or I just went out to learn how they work. How you have to become an expert in how that office works in order to write authoritatively about it, right?
And Jim Hersick, by the way.
But let me finish. And covering county commissioners, county government is no different. So I would go up and ask, but that work, as we go back to, is not being done by anybody. Nobody's out there saying, well, I want to meet with you. I want to do a follow-up story. I want to show me where your analysis shows that you couldn't cut anything more. Show me what your obligations were. You say that these certain things are mandated by the state or state cost. Show me where that increased from the last 2 years or 3 years and get that information, right? That's not done by anybody, and it makes it easier to get away with just saying we couldn't find anywhere else to cut. It reminds me just...
which lends itself to this question. If you were able to cut this year, does that mean you were bloated last year and you could have cut last year and saved us money last year?
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
The political reality is this, okay? Anytime that the commissioners are going to raise taxes, they're going to do it in the first year of their term. We all know, 3 of us sitting in this room, plus everybody listening to this show,
they're hoping
knows that last year, those same costs would have been, nobody was going to raise taxes last year or the year before they're running for re-election, right? That's going to hold the line on taxes this year. We're not going to raise it, right?
Right.
Because even if you raised it 7% or 10% or 15%,
it was still raising taxes.
That is a political liability. So, you defer the raising of the taxes until the first year of your term.
Yeah.
And that way you hope that by the time you're up for re-election, should you
forget
choose that,
about
you
They
forget
about it. Exactly.
Well, and
I got a feeling people aren't going to forget this time around.
No. 28%. I mean, if you were smart, if there are increases, you phase it in. But, they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. No, Fayette County, you're going to take 28% elephant and just eat it. And so that's the thing with reporting, whether it's Woodward and Bernstein that brought down the presidency, great reporters, or Paul Sunyak, the Housing Authority.
I'd prefer you reverse that, put me first.
Yeah. For Pennsylvania at least. But the problem is without newspapers and the Fourth Estate, I mean, this is a big weakness in our government that we're losing reporters. And quite frankly, a lot of people are, getting their news on the internet, or they're getting it from... they're getting it on Facebook,
and that's not to diss the internet, because the internet is a powerful tool, and there are very legitimate news sources out there on the internet. The problem is when somebody says something and it's taken for gospel knowledge out there.
Well, it's on the internet; it has to be true.
Absolutely, that's the problem.
Well, and something about Jim Hersick, though, he was a great public employee. He helped. We didn't have an assessment since 1959. People think it's old now. When I was in there, it was 1959. Jim Hersick led the charge, and very professional guy. I take my hat off to Jim, and look, and I've had a lot of discussions with Jim.
Jim's still there, or he just retired?
He retired. Then he brought him back as a consultant, and my understanding is there's a lot of issues. But one of the things that, before I forget, with everything going on in Fayette County. One of the things we need is an independent audit to come in and see, you saw where they stopped the spending down there. They want to see where all the money's going. Well, in Fayette County, I mean, I think there's a reckoning coming in Fayette County. I do want to say one thing, there's a lot of row officers, and, the one row officer, recorder of deeds, John Marietta, is running for that against Mrs. Becker, both good people. But I have to give John Marietta credit that of all the row officers, he's blasting the county commissioners. He's been on there with Gino Gallo from Connellsville. And it's an amazing thing. There's one row officer, and hey, some people can't stand him. Some people, they love the hillbilly. But I appreciate the fact that he's being an activist as an elected official and, calling it how he sees it. So, John, I appreciate, and I wish more row officers would take your lead, but I think we need an independent audit in Fayette County because the spending's out of control. When I was county commissioner, the budget was around 11, 12 million. It's 54 million now. That's huge. 4.5 times. It's way out of control. And, there's a common denominator. I have no malice for anybody. Vince Facides has been in there for 30 years. We've got crime, poverty, unemployment. And one of the big things, Russ, and one of the things that we've got here at Penn State, we've lost 30,000 people in the last 2 decades. This is the key statistic. If you want to look at analytics, the loss of population in Fayette County is one of the reasons Penn State may be on the chopping block because their enrollment's down 40%. I don't know if you have any, so the budget's been out of control. And Vince, you've been taxing and spending like a liberal with your partner Scott Dunn.
Now, in all fairness, though,
sure.
I mean, you're comparing really apples to oranges here, Sean, as far as the budgets. I mean, your budget was 30 years ago. I don't know what healthcare costs were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Just a very cursory look myself at this year's budget. Healthcare costs is almost $7 million in the county budget.
Yeah.
You have mandatory raises through union negotiations that have taken place through those 30 years. You've had cost of living expenses raises that have taken place.
You have a prison that you had to build that was long overdue.
Right, and which was a problem when you were 30 years ago.
And I did things.
And I think the commissioners did a very good job of getting us a new prison at the least amount of cost as possible, really.
Well,
that other counties.
But again, there's no analysis of what that actually cost that I have seen. Okay, and I did a little bit of work for the Courier in Connellsville when I came out of retirement. I did a couple stories, and they were formulating the budget to pay for the prison at that time. And I can tell you that it changed from the preliminary budget to the final budget. And I did do some questioning of Sam Lynch on that because it seemed to me that it was, why did you need to change it? This was going to be your funding mechanism in the proposed budget, but now it's over here, it's $4 million a year. From what it had been, 2.5 or something like that, I believe, was what had been line item budgeted. So, I was going to, if I were still a reporter on a regular basis, I would have went back that next year and say, well, wait a minute, where did this whole $4 million go? Is it related to the prison or not? I'm not saying that it was or it wasn't. I'm just saying that the whole funding mechanism changes, and to track that down, you have to talk to the people who are behind it and ask pertinent questions and get pertinent answers and get honest answers to the things. Like you mentioned Jim Hersick earlier, the reassessment that was triggered, it was actually a big part of that was State Representative Larry Roberts at the time. Larry was mounting a tax appeal on his house. I thought I was a pretty savvy guy. I mean, I'm covering county government. They have appeal hearings. I would cover them. And they bring in a guy named Mark Ackerman from Pittsburgh, who's Larry's certified appraiser. And Ackerman says, well, I tried to find the rate book that you have to use. 1958 is the year of the last reassessment, so I'm not 59. It's the year I was born in 58. And I can't find it. Jim Hersick couldn't give me the rate. We didn't have the rate book. I couldn't find one. And you have to have it because the rate book is like the Bible on how you grade a house. And I never knew this book existed. I never knew that it had to be a base year value for everybody. And basically talked to Ackerman later. He says, yes, you have to have it, but they couldn't find the rate book. And then eventually I think Jim did find one, but the whole chapter on valuing land was missing from the one rate book in his office. And it was from 58. So what you found, I went to see Jim afterwards and I said, Jim, is it true what Ackerman says about you need to use a 58 rate book? He said, yeah. I said, and you found the rate book, but it doesn't have the land. Yeah. I said, well, and you have to have a property record card. Each property, each house has to have a record card that's filled out. Like, is it brick? Is it vinyl? Is it wood? Is it poor shit condition, good condition? Is it level topography? All these things are factors in a mathematical formula that you go to the rate book to give it a grade, and then you do the calculations and you get a value. Everything has to be predicated on 1958 values. Yeah. And I have to have a property record card. Yeah. Can you go to your files and pull my property record card for the house I built on Dixon Boulevard in 1987, I believe it was, and get out that rate book and show me right now how you got the numbers on that rate card from that book? And Jim Hersick said, probably not. I said, that's all I need to know.
Well,
The system has been bastardized and is not working right, and they strayed from using the rate book, which was required, and it's created all this disparity and things. So,
well, I mean, and that's the thing, Russ, back to the state of the county. You know, one of the things, if you're losing 30,000 in population,
Sure.
and the budget, you could say 30 years, but if you look at, and you go up, the big increase has been in the last few 10, 15 years. But here's what I had to take great umbrage in. We're losing people. A lot of people in Fayette County, they work in West Virginia. Thank God for Morgantown. People work in Pittsburgh, Greensburg. Some people work in West Ohio. The thing is, they're expanding government. Fayette County is not a fourth-class county anymore. Way back when there was a bill passed, yada, yada, yada. But there's a decline. And we're pretending we're a fourth-class county when we're actually a fifth-class county.
Class.
So why would you go and buy almost a $500,000 building next to the courthouse? Joe Ferentz, rest in peace, the building with the lions. They acquisitioned that building. So government's falling. The people are leaving. Government's expanding. So they go in there and renovate. Then the $1.2 million tunnel. What a joke. I mean, can you believe? I just went to Washington County 2 weeks ago. I work with county commissioners, business people in the construction business. They have no security going into their administration building. Washington County is a almost $300 to $400 million budget. A lot of success. One of the things Paul brought up, South Point, how Frank Mascara developed South Point, and it's just a tremendous success. But while in Fayette County, again, I want people out there listening, let's look at our county. This is our home. You grew up here. I grew up here. You grew up here?
No.
But your kids.
Kids did.
And
I didn't move here until April of '96.
And Russ has an interesting story. I want to talk about his son a little bit. But here's the thing. Let's all look at Fayette County. People look at the Steelers. Oh, we're losing. We won 6 Super Bowls. And when we don't go to the Super Bowl as a Steeler nation, it's a failure. I personally don't like the coach. I like Cowher better. I mean, Tomlin, one of the great things he says, the standard is a standard. But his standard, we're just not winning. But people focus on the Steelers, and we're not. Well, let's look at our county. Crime, poverty, unemployment, losing 30,000 people. When you look at Monongalia County, what a success. And thank goodness West Virginia University invested in Uniontown Hospital. What a godsend. And then you look at Washington County. I mean, Frank Mascara way back when, and Washington County's doing great. And then you look at Westmoreland County. So why is it that this county, Fayette, our home, in the middle of these successful counties, is not getting why are we not succeeding? If it's the Steelers, we say, hey, it's the coach's fault.
Or keeping up. And I think one of the more recent, and this was when I was a reporter, the commission, and Sean can talk more about this, but I remember it vividly. The county owned all that property up there where Walmart now is. It was a county home property. It was a cornfield.
Okay.
And Sean wanted to see it develop because it's in South Union Township, it's prime, and he can talk more about that, Sean. But I still remember the meeting, and one commissioner, put up his thing like, you guys don't want to give this to the redevelopment authority or whatever to develop, and I think we need to develop it. And he had actually a sign that he posted in front of his where he said his desk at the commissioner meetings, the cornfield meter. And like every day that this goes on, every meeting that we have, I'm just going to add the days to it that it's still sitting there as a cornfield, and we've done nothing with it because it's prime developable land, and you can talk about maybe how that happened and how it got developed.
Sure. Well, it was like 100, I don't know how many acres, 120, 118. If you remember across from the old Holiday Inn, where the current Walmart is, the Honda, this is probably the greatest development in the last 50 years in Fayette County, and I guess I can take credit for it. This was my vision, but I had to pressure the other 2 commissioners. So when one person can make a difference, a minority commissioner can make a difference too. But I happened to was good terms with Frank Mascara, and then you had Congressman Murtha. Well, the 800-pound gorilla controlled the appropriations budget for defense, which is bigger than most countries. And I got to working with Congressman Murtha. The county owned the land. we floated a bond. We reassessed the county because we wanted to make it fair. And Paul Sunyak, as long as he was reporting, there was going to be a reassessment. We did it the right way. And, because like if Russ, Paul, and Sean all live in the same neighborhood and we have the exact same plan and exact same house, but Paul got a discount, Russ, you and I are paying more. Well, that, assessments are supposed to be free and fair.
It was all over the place. There was no consistency.
So what we did, we floated a bond, and then you said about people want to pressure me right off the bat. You got to build a prison, Well, so, a prison sucks money. And, people do need to live in good conditions. There's no doubt about it. But a prison is a big burden to a county. But an industrial park that increases the tax base, increases jobs. And so we invested $2 million. Again, I had this mega development. You can go back. And actually on my Facebook page, you can look right now, and you could see where it was just dirt. Terry McMillan, who's a great engineer in his firm, and his son was the first person to buy land, and he helped develop it. But I went up met with Congressman Murtha, and this is how things happen, ladies and gentlemen, and this is leadership. Congressman Murtha had the power. County owned the land. We invested $2 million. Congressman Murtha got us a earmark, $2 million, and then we took $2 million from PennDOT. We didn't ask him because we hired Bill Piper, who formerly worked at PennDOT and knew all the ins and outs. Said, hey, Sean, you commissioners have a say in how monies are spent. So now we've got the land. Now we got $2 million from the county, $2 million from Murtha, $2 million from PennDOT. And now that's how you make things happen. You put in the infrastructure. It's a good area. It's a good location. And now look at it. I mean, that's economic development. And Frank Mascara did it on a grander scale, where I got the idea of what he did with South Point. So this is the kind of stuff we need. We hear all this sheepskin trail, and I was talking to Dave Lohr, and he told me sometimes it's $650,000 a mile. There's no jobs with the trail. Hey, I like trails. I go down to Connellsville. I love going up to High Powell. South Union's got one of the best. But we need economic development. We need jobs. Yeah. And we need manufacturing jobs. We were talking before the show. Russ, I just want to tell a little story, if you don't mind, about your son and where he works and his career rise.
I've mentioned Heartland Fabrication. They've been on this show. We've chatted with them. Used to be Hillman Barge. I think there was another name in between there.
Yeah.
I don't remember what. But, they're constantly hiring. My son, interested in welding. That's one of the things that they offered. He didn't know. He didn't know how to weld. They hired him and taught him. He got paid
to train
while he was learning.
Yep.
He's to the point where he's top classification welding. He's making a very, very nice paycheck off of that. Full benefits, vacation pay in there, and everything else. And you don't have to go. And I don't mean to make a commercial for Heartland Fabrications here, but it's not just welders they're looking for. They're looking for electricians. They're looking for painters. They're looking for general laborers at the facility down there.
Well, and that's why we need to focus. Manufacturing is where it's at. I mean, in medical too. I have a daughter she's going to be a physician assistant. They start out 120, 150, depending on where you are in the country. But manufacturing jobs, like you said, it's not just welding, it's other things. But, our focus is like the sheepskin trail, I mean, come on, people. I mean, yeah, we need to work on things like that, but we have to have priorities. If Fayette County is going to survive, it's going to be in the manufacturing sector. I happen to be a member of the Manufacturers Association in York, Pennsylvania, and it's all about manufacturers. It's an amazing association and something we need to work with. I'm on the marketing committee for that, but because of my business and construction, I got on there. But these are the things so when your county's hurting and you're they bought the Gallatin Bank building. Well, they got it for $1.
Let me back. No, they did not buy it.
Well, they acquired it.
It was acquired free of charge.
Yes.
It was through the land grant thing. It was in
gotcha.
foreclosure. It was acquired through a land grant thing. They paid nothing for that building.
Right, but
and the renovations that went into it were, for the most part anyway, if not all, was, whether you want to like it or not, was through Biden infrastructure and the COVID monies there.
And those monies are gone. But my point is, when you acquire a building, hey, here's a building, it's free, and you get but it's not totally remodeled. If you take a look at the building, walk around it. But my point is, you keep acquiring office space. My understanding is the fourth floor is a ghost floor on the courthouse, except for maybe the jury commissioner's office. This is what my understanding is. But you bought the Farron's building. You built a $1.2 million total. You acquired the Gallatin Bank building. Now you're getting your butt in eminent domain, which is going to cause legal fees. And then, you got to issue a press release where the one commissioner, Dave Lohr, was totally against and making it look like, you just want to take people's property. Why aren't we focused on manufacturing? Right. Hello? What is that? Yeah. Hello? What was that movie? Back to the Future? What are you guys thinking?
Paul, I've been arguing the exact same thing. We talk about the population decline here in Fayette County. The 2020 census has us at 126,000, I think.
I think 122 now.
Could be.
That's almost 30,000 people, Russ, in 20 years.
I understand.
Yes. That's an exodus.
What are we doing to reverse? We hear politicians all the time say we need to reverse that trend, but we don't see that trend reversing. What are they doing?
Well, I would say this. 15 years now I've been gone from the paper. And some may rejoice in that. And that's fine, But when I went to Harrisburg to work, which I did for 10 years, in the capital for the House Democratic Caucus, right, and did communications work there. And
so you learned the inside of Harrisburg
not so much the inside, but what you see is that. Any of these programs that they say, well, we got a state grant, we got to oblige by those rules, or it's a federal program, or it's the Biden money, whatever revenue stream you want to call it, Russ. Okay, that's not done specifically for Fayette County or for Western Pennsylvania. And one of the interesting things that I noticed is you got like Western Pennsylvania, including Fayette County, can tap into the same programs designed to do the same things, be they trails, be they RCAP money, be that the Biden money, be that federal program for this, that, or the other thing, right? They're all eligible, whether you're a Republican congressman or a Democratic congressman or no congressman at all.
And it doesn't matter whether you're Fayette County, Pennsylvania, or Fayette County, Georgia, Fayette County, Atlanta,
but
Georgia.
To follow up on what you said about population loss, the question that everyone should ask is, big question mark, why is Western Pennsylvania same grants available as are in Harrisburg East to Philadelphia, which is booming. You go out that way, it's booming. The population, every time there's a census, Western Pennsylvania, including Fayette County, loses representatives, and they put them in Eastern PA. What are they doing differently? I think it's because they're using a higher and better use of their money, and the projects that they're picking to develop have sort of a higher success ratio in a certain way.
Sure.
So why isn't it happening here like it's happening there is a question that everybody who lives here should be asking. And as a reporter, and we talked about this before, Sean, and maybe Russ hasn't heard me talk. I've talked about it on the radio before, and I've been a guest. Always, and even when I was a reporter when Bob Foltz was here, I'd come on the show every Friday, and Brian remembers that. Brian Morozic remembers that. There's the Fayette County way of doing things. And it's just the way it's always been. And I'll give you one good example. When I was covering the county, there was the way they compensated their tax collectors was Fayette County, the poorest county in the area, was giving them a 5% commission on all county taxes that they collected. So if you were the tax collector in Morton Township and you have Nemacolin Woodlands, or you were the tax collector in South Union and you had the mall, which at that time was booming, they wrote their check out. Here you go. Here's my tax check. Oh. Sign it, put it in the bank. 5% of whatever that big figure was went to you as the tax collector.
Yes.
Well, that sounds awful high. So I did some calling around to the other counties to find out, how do you handle this? And it was a range of things. Once the tax collector got to reach a certain income threshold, maybe they got 3% they got to keep, and then it went down to 2 if it was over like 100,000. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Then it went down to 1. So that there wasn't this kind of lucrative thing that you could just have a cash register based on the wealth of your township or your municipality. Other places, straight like $1.75 per bill. So that if this was a mobile home that was falling apart, and they paid $100 in taxes, you got $1.75. If you cashed a check up here for Nemacolin Woodlands, you got $1.75. Same amount of work was involved.
Right.
And the commissioners at that time, and I think that's when Joe Hardy was a commissioner and Angela Zimmerling, they voted to change Fayette County's thing. And all the tax collectors came and they were bitching and moaning at the meeting. And of course, they didn't like me for doing that story. But all that it wasn't Paul Sunyak, and Mike Ellis would say this all the time. The newspaper doesn't have the power to do anything except inform people. Okay? Mm-hmm. Once the people were informed that we're paying 5%, and other places are doing $1.50 or $1.75 a bill, maybe we should change that. Mm-hmm. And public pressure then yields to the change being made. So there's the Fayette County way of doing things, and just because it's been done that way doesn't mean that it's always the best way or the only way.
There's grant money. And by the way, grants, let's be clear about a grant. It's taxpayers' money.
It doesn't matter whether it's coming from county, specifically county taxpayer money or Pennsylvania resident
yes,
money or United States resident money. It's still tax money. It boils down to your money.
And there's consequences if you acquire a building or you acquire something, and then you have the consequences of upkeep and paying the electric bill, paying the gas bill. But the big thing is that we all have to ask ourselves, when we've lost 30,000 people in the last 20 years, and then we keep building, acquiring more buildings, growing the government, and why you can always cut. There's no budget that can't be cut. But again, being a fifth-class county, you can consolidate row offices. The jury commissioners, everybody knows that this is a position, no offense to the current jury commissioners. Thank you for your service. But it's antiquated, and we don't need it. And we have to be creative, but we have to cut where we can cut, and then we have to invest in things that are going to be successful. But getting back to the loss of population, by the way, Paul and I had a conversation. He's a Yulin. He went to German. Remember Fairchance Georgia's, the Runners, and then the Albert Gowan Colonials. The state, they got together. It was unsustainable. They forced them to consolidate. Now you've got Uniontown. You got Laurel Highlands. I went to Laurel Highlands. Love Laurel Highlands. Uniontown. The kids in there. I don't know. I heard I don't know the exact number. I heard it's in the 200s graduating classes. It's a matter of, let me tell you, folks, spoiler alert. Now, everybody likes their little kingdom, this school, that school. But what happened out there where you were, Paul, it had to happen. It was unsustainable to have 3 high schools out there in the rural sticks.
In the same school district.
Yeah.
For 20 years, it was the Albert Gowan School District, and it was 3 separate high schools that actually played each other in sports, which I found interesting. Intense rivalries for sure, but the one school district running 3 separate high schools. So when they bought football uniforms or something like that, they bought 3 separate sets.
Yeah.
And so, we're all Albert Gallatin School District, but we played each other. It was kind of crazy.
Sharing resources.
We are starting to run out of time this hour here, gentlemen.
Sure.
By the way, we are talking with Sean Cavanagh and Paul Sunyak here. They've bought the time courtesy of ACS
He
Roofing.
bought the time.
Yeah. Mike Fetsko, local guy. If you need any help on your roofs, commercial, residential, he's a local guy, and everybody knows that name, Fetsko. Good hunky name. He's a good friend of mine. How much time we have left?
We got about a minute and a half.
So the only thing that Uniontown, and I said this a long time ago, Uniontown and South Union, North Union, the only thing they share is their sewage. Mm-hmm. It's funny. They share their sewage.
Yeah.
But, what about police forces, schooling? And unfortunately, with this loss of population, because, there's a saying in Proverbs, correct me what it is, the number, where there is no vision, the people will perish. And that's what's happening. And then maybe in the next hour, we're going to go into schools closing. What's the school up there in the mountain?
AJ
McMullen. And then now the big one of them all. We are Penn State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. My gut tells me it's not. It's going to stay here with us.
Well, we're going to talk about that maybe at the start of the hour.
Yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
And then we had a question, and Rush, you said so people can call in next hour.
Yeah, we'll open up calls next hour.
Wilma Lewick wants to know about FOIA. So Paul, about getting information from your government, and Paul's an expert at getting
What's
information.
FOIA?
Yeah.
Huh? What?
Isn't that something you walk on?
FOIA. And
That's
then
FOIA.
Freedom of-
That's FOIA.
Right
Yeah,
to
yeah,
know,
okay.
all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And we have an expert here that can
Okay,
tell you about
we
how
can
to
do that.
file a FOIA,
Absolutely.
Freedom of Information Act.
Absolutely. Okay. So we are talking, as I mentioned, former County Commissioner Sean Cavanagh, retired reporter from what used to be a good newspaper, the Herald Standard.
Award-winning reporter.
You know, it is now yesterday's news to tomorrow. Paul Sunyak. And so we're going to continue this conversation next hour. We'll take some phone calls as well next hour. In the meantime, we have the CBS News coming up, news from around the world, and then TJ with the local news, sports, and weather. This is WMBS, a Uniontown. It's 2 o'clock at this tone.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Cammie McCormick. The White House a short time ago described the chat security officials had on bombing Yemen.
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt continuing to insist no war plans were discussed. CBS's Ed O'Keefe on the transcript now released by The Atlantic.
Among other things, it said that at 12:15 Eastern Time, F-18s would launch the first strike package towards Yemen. At 1:45, a trigger-based F-18 first strike window would start.
CBS's Charlie D'Agata is at the Pentagon.
This is the kind of granular detailing in terms of the timing, in terms of the weapons packages. These are, in terms of the sequencing of the targets, this is information that should never leave the building, and certainly not leave the building on unsecured devices or unsecured apps like this.
Some of those on the chat were back before lawmakers today, among them CIA Director John Ratcliffe, who insists he did nothing wrong.
My responsibility as CIA director, one of its responsibilities is to kill terrorists. And that's exactly what I did along with President Trump's excellent national security team. That's what we should be focused on.
The Supreme Court has upheld a Biden administration regulation on ghost guns, those nearly impossible to trace weapons. CBS's Jan Crawford.
If it looks like a gun, it fires like a gun, it acts like a gun, they're going to treat it like a gun, and you've got to get those serial numbers on it to sell it and background checks as well.
Jim Kursula has the latest on the wildfires burning in the South.
Raging wildfires fueled by downed trees and debris from Hurricane Helene last fall have prompted new evacuations in the mountains of the Carolinas. Megan Miller, her husband, and their 10 children have left their home in Greenville County, South Carolina.
It's scary because it's one thing knowing that you're about to lose something and you have a time crunch and what's the most important thing versus we just need to get up and go.
Dozens of wildfires are burning across the dry southeast. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
There was an unusual protest in Gaza today. Palestinians chanted anti-Hamas slogans. It was a rare show of public anger. Hamas's long suppressed dissent. The protesters were also angry at Israel for resuming the fighting. It was a year ago. Baltimore's Key Bridge collapsed after it was hit by a ship. Maryland Governor Wes Moore.
We remember the cold morning in March that changed our state forever. And we remember the tears that we shed and the uncertainty that we all felt.
6 construction workers were killed in that collapse. This is CBS News.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Your baby's birth is a precious moment, and it's even more special when you deliver close to home at WVU Medicine Uniontown Hospital's new birthing center. Featuring renovated labor and postpartum rooms and a new C-section suite, your journey to motherhood will be as comfortable as possible. Plus, with an on-site nursery and skilled pediatric and OB teams, you and your baby will be cared for at every step. WVU Medicine Uniontown Hospital, where families are born.
Is it time to get your first home? Or is it time to trade up to a home that fits your lifestyle? Then visit Clayton Homes of Bell Vernon, where you'll find special savings along with trade-in and trade-up deals. And on March 29th, and March 29th only, mention that you heard this ad on WMBS Radio, and you'll receive $2,000 off your new home. Clayton Homes of Bell Vernon, 4500 PA 51. Trade-in value toward purchase of a new home determined by resale value and evaluation by home center manager. Does not include park models.
The first appearance in the March Madness basketball tournament in more than 30 years by St. Francis University could also be its last. Steve Cathan reports.
St. Francis was involved in a first four game in the tournament that went down to the wire with a Hail Mary pass ending.
Simpson, home run play, the deflection.
But now, just days after that heartbreaking loss to Alabama State, St. Francis, located in Loretto, Pennsylvania, says it will move from Division I to Division III in the summer of 2026. The Board of Trustees says it was not an easy or quick decision. A statement noted the growing complexity of big-time college sports with the transfer portal and money for players that it says moves athletics away from the love of the game. Steve Cathan, CBS News.
Vice President Vance now joining his wife in traveling to Greenland, but the dog sled race is out. Instead, they'll visit a U.S. space outpost. This is CBS News.
Now the local, district, and statewide news. Being brought to you by Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant Dieter. Keeping you warm and cozy in winter and cool and comfortable in summer with a quality Bryant gas furnace or air conditioning system. And now the news.
Good afternoon, 2:05, mostly cloudy or make it partly sunny in 42 outside the Davis & Davis Attorneys at Law Studios. Injured call today for your free consultation, 724-437-2799. Your local station, 590 AM, 101.1 FM, WMBS. I'm TJ DeStefano. Sports and weather follow the news. The Pennsylvania Turnpike has launched a new text messaging service to help during unexpected traffic backlogs by texting info to 47676. Drivers receive automated location-specific information about an incident, anticipated clearance times, and road updates. The Turnpike said drivers should use the service while at a complete stop through hands-free devices or by having a passenger use the phone. Users will be walked through prompts to verify their backlog location using GPS. The service will then give updates every 15 to 20 minutes and text stop after the incident clears. Supervisors in Hempfield Township are approving the demolition of the former SCI Greensburg prison. Members have awarded the roughly $730,000 contract to Rittenauer & Sons Construction. They will be removing hazardous materials from the buildings at the property before tearing them down. Township Manager Aaron Psycho says the work could get started in about 60 days. The Shapiro administration is challenging the U.S. Department of Agriculture's termination of a program that provides funding to Pennsylvania farms that send produce to local food banks. The governor says that he directed Agricultural Secretary Russell Redding to appeal the USDA's decision to end the local food purchasing assistance program. The department reportedly canceled a $13 million contract meant for 189 farms and 14 food banks in the Commonwealth. The appeal states that there is no articulated or reasonable basis for terminating the agreement. A new study is linking salty food with depression. We get more from Tammy Trujillo.
Scientists in China say they found a link between high-salt diets and depression-like behavior in mice. In a study published last week, the scientists found that excessive salt intake can trigger immune responses in the brain that can lead to behaviors resembling depression. The study says mice fed with high-salt diets displayed heightened anxiety and behavioral despair, like being motionless. They say it's not the first study to link high-salt diets and depression, but it is the first to offer a potential explanation for the connection. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
WMBS time is 2:08.
439-2323. For 24-hour emergency service, call us when you need. We're Fayette's Heating and Air Conditioning, your service company.
When it's sweltering outside, you'll be cool inside with central air conditioning from Bryant, the people that know cool. And it's easy to have a central air conditioning system installed in your home. Simply call on your Bryant dealer, Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, located near the Laurel Mall on Route 119, north of Uniontown. The phone number is 439-2323. Let Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning rescue you from the sticky, humid summer weather. Remember that number for Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant dealer, 439-2323.
Call Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, 439-2323, 439-2323, 439-2323.
And in sports, we have no sports tonight on WMBS. Tomorrow we got the Pirates opening the regular season in Miami against the Marlins. Ace Paul Skeens goes for the Bucks. Pre-game 3:45. First pitch is 4:10 tomorrow afternoon on WMBS. Also tomorrow, the Penguins visit the Buffalo Sabres. We'll have that game starting at 7 o'clock. Pens have now dropped 2 in a row. And finally, the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, it gets underway tomorrow night, and our coverage will be at 9:30. Partly sunny, 48 for the rest of this afternoon. Mainly clear, will drop to 28 tonight. And mostly sunny tomorrow, 60. Cloudy on Friday, could see some afternoon showers. Friday's high will be 63. Right now, partly sunny, 43 outside of our Davis & Davis Attorneys at Law Studios. 2:10 is our time on this Wednesday afternoon. I'm TJ DeStefano. Up next, hour 2 of What's on Your Mind with Russ Rhodes on WMBS.
The local, district, and statewide news has been brought to you by Fayette Heating and Air Conditioning, your Bryant dealer. Route 119 north of Uniontown, located near Laurel Mall. Phone 439-2323.
If you've driven by Tireman's Auto Garage, you've probably seen all the 2-, 4-, and 6-seater golf carts. Well, they're available for sale, and ACIMA financing is available. Interested in renting a golf cart? See Joe and Kim at Tireman's Auto Garage about daily, weekly, or monthly rentals. Tireman's Auto Garage, voted best in Fayette with the best prices in town for tires. Used tires just $25 mounted and balanced, and golf carts too. Mill Street, phone 724-425-9606.
If you are looking for a trusted local law firm with a strong commitment to their clients, look no further than Zebley Law Offices. Attorney Zebley has been practicing law in Fayette County for more than 4 decades. Although specializing in bankruptcy, Zebley also handles real estate matters, civil suits, collections, wills, powers of attorney, and more. If you need legal help, go with a name you recognize and trust. Call Zebley Law Offices today at 724-439-9200.
What makes your local Liberty Tax the best choice for professional tax services? At Liberty Tax, we have low prices, a stress-free environment, and trained tax experts that guarantee the maximum refund you're entitled to receive. Whether you've got kids in daycare, are looking to file as head of household, or used apps like Venmo to receive payments, we've got you covered. Visit libertytax.com to learn more.
Liberty Tax in Uniontown in Washington. Call 724-550-4016.
Are you considering a project design and don't know where to start? K2 Engineering offers a wide range of professional civil, architectural, and municipal services to meet your individual project needs. Our versatility combined with our personalized approach is what sets us apart as a full-service engineering and consultation firm. To learn more about our services, please visit us on the web at www.k2engineering.net. K2 Engineering, where customer service is our priority.
Did you know that you have a choice for your physical therapy provider? NovaCare Rehabilitation offers same-day appointments, and oftentimes you don't need a prescription from your doctor to see us. We will make sure that you are treated as an individual and will work directly one-on-one with you to help achieve your goals. You have tried the rest, now try the best. NovaCare, Delaware Avenue in Uniontown. Phone 724-437-0556 to schedule your appointment today.
Spring will soon be here, and the weather will be turning warmer. Spring is also a time when Chesler's Fine Furniture in Uniontown clears their floor of discontinued items to make room for new stock. There are sale items in every department. Table lamps priced from $35 to $129. Lazy Boy rocker recliners starting at $459 in fabric and just $7.99 in top grain leather. Upholstered power rocker recliners in 3 colors for $659. For the living room, there is a 76-inch sofa in gray at $499 and matching love seats and chairs at sale prices. If you need storage for all those seasonal clothes, Chesler's has 5-drawer chests starting at $285. If someone in the home needs a lift chair, they are also sale priced from $799 and up. For the kitchen area, 5-piece dining sets start at $5.99. This is just a sampling of items on sale, and Chesler's has delivery and credit terms to fit your budget. Chesler's Fine Furniture, Route 51 north of Uniontown, where customers send their friends.
Are you looking to list or sell your house? Now is the time to let the professionals at Caldwell Banker Laurel Ridge Realty help you with all of your real estate needs. Caldwell Banker Laurel Ridge Realty has 2 convenient locations to better serve you. In Uniontown area, 724-437-7100, or in Connellsville area, 724-628-7200, and speak with one of our real estate professionals. Visit our website, caldwellbanker.com. We have been proudly serving Western Pennsylvania area for over 30 years and look forward to helping you with all of your real estate needs. Broker Paul Borge Jr.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name.
Welcome back to What's on Your Mind, a special edition, and I say that because today's show has been purchased by Sean Cavanagh, former commissioner of Fayette County, and is brought to you actually by ACS Roofing, who is sponsoring this show. Also in the studio with us is former Uniontown Herald Standard reporter Paul Sunyak. So welcome back for hour 2, guys.
Yeah, the award-winning Paul Sunyak.
Yeah.
Hey, it is an accomplishment. Small-town guy from Lambert, PA, goes to Penn State, ends up being on the editorial board of the Nittany Lion.
Absolutely.
And he wins all these awards. Just imagine if you went to New York City or Washington, D.C., would be at his book signing. But back to ACS Roofing, Mike Fetsko, local boy, he's done really well. 412-376-4831, 412-376-4831. He's offering 10% off. He can help you with your roofs, flat roofs, shingle roofs, siding, hardy board, and also gutters and downspouts. But again, everybody knows that Fetsko name, and my grandmother actually, best friend was Mary Fetsko from Perryopolis.
Okay. There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
I plugged that for you, Michael.
There you go.
So, hey, again, back on the radio. Hey, it's great seeing Russ, and I really inspired about, manufacturing. One thing, Russ, we talked about, for those who don't know, I've had quite a few pizza shops in my day. Vinny's Pizza, which is still there. There's one down in Brookline, and we had in Morgantown. But why I bring that up? Pizza. Hey, everybody loves pizza. But in Dunbar Township, there's 2 guys that build pizza ovens. And back in the day, they were called oven guys. And for those of you who don't know, these oven guys, they bought the Romeo. By the way, shout out to Ron Romeo out there. And they bought his building, and it's just packed. But guess what? They make pizza ovens that ship to South Africa. They have an account with Domino's Pizza, which is on the New York Stock Exchange, Papa John's, and Little Caesars. And Vinny's has their ovens as well. So shout out to the oven guys.
They're shipping around the world.
And
right from Fayette County.
Making pizza ovens. So manufacturing, folks, this is where the money's at. These guys, I heard they have a private jet. They're big. They're not bigger than U.S. Steel, but hopefully one day. But that's a success story. And Russ talked about his son down at
Heartland Fabrication.
Heartland Fabrication. So this is what we need to focus on. This will bring people back to Fayette County. Hey, let's face it. I have 2 kids. My son, by the way, Penn State. My daughter, Colleen, went there for 2 years, then Cal U, Harvard on the Mon, where I went to school. And wanted to get back to 2 things, the FOIA thing. But you were saying, just to clarify, Russ, about the bike trail and how much is it going to cost? Could you reiterate that?
So there's roughly the trail itself encompasses from one end to the other is 32, 33 miles, something like that. Only about 8 miles has been completed. And this is over the course of, 20 years? At this point in time, and 8 miles are completed. There's still another 25 or so to go. And the estimated cost of that 25 miles is $20 million. And that's if it were to be completed today. That's not taking into account, inflation in the future and the cost of goods and labor in the future. And it's also my understanding there is a tunnel in part of this route.
Well, not another one.
Yeah, a tunnel that's going to have to be rehabbed and to make it safe for, you and I to go through it. And that's not even part of this $20 million. I think there might even be a bridge or two that has to be.
So $20 million today's dollars.
Minimum.
So the question
Minimum.
I have then is where has anyone projected that $20 million is going to come
Yeah,
from?
I honestly don't know.
I mean, that should be part of your plan. If you had a business plan, right?
Mhm.
You would have that figured out, like where it's going to come from. And I would ask that question if I were doing a story on the trail.
I love trails. I mean,
Who doesn't?
I've been on it through, South Union Township. I've been on Ohio Pile.
Yep.
That they're
Down there
they're
in the Connorsville?
Great. Absolutely. They're absolutely great. But when we have residents of this county that don't have running water, when we have residents of this county that don't have sewage, don't you think that should take precedence?
Well,
Don't you think we should be working on getting that infrastructure taken care of, high-speed internet to all portions of the county? Because that's what employers are going to be looking for if they want to locate
or residential development. I mean, you have to have sewage. You have to have sewerage to have that, and you have to have water lines to have that.
And that's something else. I forget the numbers, but it's not insignificant. The number of housing that is currently needed in Fayette County. Where's that? Menards, they announced they were coming here, 4 years ago? Roughly, I think.
Yeah.
Part of that development was going to be housing. They were going to put housing in as part of that whole development, as well as not just their store, but other commercial
There's one
ventures.
in Morgantown.
Yeah.
Right across the road there.
And look at what's building up around that Menards there. Why aren't they here? Why aren't the commissioners actively engaging with the ownership of Menards, saying, okay, I understand economics have changed. What can we do to help ensure that you are going to break ground and start this project that you committed to 4 years? Now, they're already on the tax rolls. I mean, they're paying taxes on the because they bought the property. That's okay.
Yep.
But there could be so much more. Why are the commissioners not presenting some kind of economic plan to Menards to get them to come here?
Well, and there's a saying, people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. When we put that industrial park cross front, right, shout out to my friends there at Super 8 and Jim Filiaggi, rest in peace. He developed that Hampton Inn and all that area. I mean, he was a tough guy, and he built the first hotel, the Hampton, and the Super 8. I think it's number 1 rated by the Herald Standard. You've got the other one up there with Holiday Inn. You got the Comfort Inn. You got the Hilton Garden Inn. This was great. And everybody talked about, hey, the gas and oil. It wasn't the panacea that everybody said. Oh, it's important to our country, and it's important to
our
area,
state,
our area, and our county, and also then the gambling. So the fact is, Russ, you said it. I'm going to give you a choice, Commissioner Sunyak, Commissioner Rhodes.
I've been waiting for this day.
$20 million grant has fell out of the sky. By the way, it's taxpayer, federal, state. As Russ gave a great.
Yeah.
You should have been a teacher. $20 million. Where are you going to put it? You going to put it in the trail, or are you going to put it in infrastructure to build the county?
I'm going to use it as part of the enticement to get Menards here. Let me put in the infrastructure for you. Let me what is needed so that you can start.
Well, I would just add this 2 cents to what Sean said about planning, right? If I had $1 for every time I heard someone in Fayette County in the power structure, be that like Fay Penn or be that an elected official, county commissioner, we got a plan for Fayette forward or moving Fayette forward. That was the old slogan, right?
Yeah.
And we're updating the plan now. Pete Daly, when he was elected as state rep representing part of Fayette County, had a big thing to go to Poverty Summit. We're going to have that at the Holiday Inn, and we're going to go to D.C. and meet with the congressman and tell them what our needs are. So when you hear this build, you could go back through the clips if you had them, and just see what was said about we've turned the corner. It's going to get better. It's better. It's better. That's been a litany of examples, and you've heard it, right?
Mhm.
You've heard it. We're moving forward. We're on the fast track. We got this project, and it circles back to, where is the growing population? And I used to say this when I was at the paper, and I'll give you a real short story about this. FAPEN at that time that I was there as editorial page editor doing editorials, made a boast. It was covered by our business reporter. We have 2,000 jobs in Fayette County, good-paying jobs that employers cannot fill. Our job in economic development is sort of done.
Mm-hmm.
We want to move into now having a big state-of-the-art vo-tech school out there by Fayette campus, and of course we're going to build it at FAPEN. We're moving into education now, and I just sort of laughed at this, like, your job of economic development is done. You're pronouncing it done in Fayette County. You got to be kidding me, right? So I'll ask a logical reporter journalist question, an editorial. FAPEN, and this was when Mike Krajovic was in charge of it, if you have 2,000 good-paying, family-sustaining jobs that employers cannot fill in Fayette County, please tell us where they are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll run them on the editorial page of the Herald Standard.
Yeah.
And just for asking that question, asking them to justify the boast, the claim, and it was a boast in my opinion, right? I had to, on a one-day notice, had to go down there and get hauled into a meeting with the publisher of the paper, the editor of the paper, me, Mike Krajovic, and the president of FAPEN at the time, and asked, Paul, why are you being so negative? What do you mean negative? You're the ones that said it.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to prove it. I mean, give me the proof of it. No, you're always so negative about what we're doing, and you're against progress in Fayette County, and all these lies, just for asking a question.
Well,
and I said, you would think, and I turned to the publisher at the time, and I said, think about it. Think about it. If there were 2,000 jobs, this is before the internet was really big, right? If there's 2,000 jobs available in Fayette County that employers are desperate to fill, and
Why are not they listed in our want ads?
That's what I said. Wouldn't you think where's the first place you would think that you would see these, Val? In the classified ad section of the Herald Standard. It's the most logical place. Why aren't they there? Yeah, good point, Paul. But that's the kind of pushback you'll get just for asking a question.
Well, and I want to add to that, and Paul can verify. So, FAPEN wanted the county-owned land. They did everything they could, and I personally, their executive director back then, Mike Krajovic, I just really didn't care for the guy, and I didn't trust him. And we decided that we're going to keep that land and put it in the redevelopment authority, which, what was the gentleman's name before French?
Ray Pohaski.
Ray Pohaski, and now Andrew French.
Andrew French was his assistant at
Yeah,
that time.
and I mean, look, it's the most successful development. Let me tell you how this happened. Now, this is an inside thing. How do things happen in the world? Congressman Murtha, I helped him with his campaign, and he said, look, I want to help you. What can I do for you to Fayette County? So we had a meeting, me, Bob Schiffmeyer, supervisor from South Union Township. Hope you're listening, Bob, Semper Fi Marine. Bill Piper, the transportation expert, who taught us how to take the money from PennDOT. And then I'm trying to think who else was in that meeting. And I was in that meeting. And Congressman Murtha, I mean, this is a powerful dude. God rest his soul. I wish he was still around. I mean, he did a lot for area and he brought some defense jobs. He said, Sean, this is what he said, swear to God, what's the most important project in Fayette County? And some people say I'm not the best listener all the time. I said, well, the airport, I said, the expressway, and the county. He goes, I didn't ask you that. I said, what is the most important project? He kind of admonished me in a nice way. I said, Congressman, it's the county-owned land. It's the industrial park. We need jobs. He goes, he clapped his hands, done. Now let's put a plan together. Oh, Terry McMillan was there.
Okay.
My favorite engineer. And although my son's marrying a Penn State civil engineer, Terry, and engaged soon, Penn Stater. But anyways, he clapped his hand, and now we're going to put a plan together. So great things happen when you got to have, it takes money to make money with the land, the $2 million from the county, the $2 million from the congressman, and we put brains together, and we kept it with the redevelopment authority. And now look at it. It's just amazing. Look on the Facebook page. You could see where it was just dirt, earth moving, and Terry built his building. And that's how things are done. And you know what? Reschenthaler's our congressman. We got the state representatives. Hey, you gotta ask. Hey, Matthew 7:7 says, "Ask and you shall receive; seek and you will find; and knock and the door will be answered or opened." So, but if you don't ask, remember the congressmen work for us, the senators work for us, the state reps, the commissioners, they work for us. But you gotta have a plan. When there's no vision, the people will perish. So, got that out of the way. But that's how that whole happened, and look at it now. That's success. 18 years ago, you can see the dirt flying. But
you had asked me what I would do with that 20. Let me add on to that too. Airport,
20 million.
Airport,
Commissioner Rhodes.
Airport extension.
They've been talking about that for 30 years.
And I know it's a project that Dave Lohr has campaigned on, and it's my understanding he's got everything in place for that to happen.
And what's the name of that airport, by the way?
The Joseph A. Hardy.
Joseph A. Hardy Airport. Yeah. I'm going to come back to that.
He just needs the funding at this point in time. Where are the other commissioners in helping him get that funding? I'm not hearing it from him. If you want to talk about economic development, all you need to do, take a little ride up the road to Westmoreland. Look at their airport. Look at the
You want on 51 you're talking about?
Well, no, the Westmoreland County Airport.
That one, yeah. And then there's another one they have. On 51 is a pretty nice airport.
That's Rostraver, isn't it?
Yeah, Rostraver.
Oh, out that way. But yeah, look at the buildup that has taken place out at Westmoreland around that airport there.
Yep.
That's talk about bringing in economic development. To me, that's a no-brainer. Get that runway extended.
I've used it. I've flown to Florida out of it.
I
love it.
I think to circle back around, I've heard Sean say a couple times, we took the money from PennDOT to do the industrial park up there, where not the industrial park, but the business park they called it, right? That the redevelopment authority oversaw, which is where Walmart is and the car dealerships and such. It's not so much that you took the money from PennDOT; it's that he discovered. Correct me if I'm wrong. From talking with this Piper guy who knows the ins and outs, it was sort of you had the ability. It's discretionary how you spent the PennDOT money.
Reallocate resources.
Right.
The most important.
He basically told them that they had the ability to direct a certain chunk of PennDOT funding. Am I reading this correctly?
Absolutely.
And then, we can use that to develop the roads in the business park, which will help the project come to fruition. Okay, so I think that's the discretion that commissioners. That's one example of the discretion that they do have in allocating funds, which is what you're talking about. If you had $20 million, you might say, "Why don't we do this for the airport for a more bang for your buck?" Was one of your favorite sayings when you were a commissioner.
Yeah, and the thing is, people say, if you really want to look at it, if you just want to be a lazy county commissioner and be an administrator, you could do that. But I think in the modern day and age, people expect county commissioners to be leaders. So just doing the budget and watching that, by the way, I still want an independent audit soon because we're hearing a lot of bad things. But you got to have vision, and that was vision. I mean, and fortunately, we had that land and, again, the plan together. But, I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. I went to Bill Piper. I was in the Army Reserves with him. We were both, and Bill Piper, good friend, and then he started consulting and advising Westmoreland County. Hey, how about advising us? Hey, so you're right, reallocating resources, being creative. But you know what? You got to get your head out of Fayette County and travel a little and see what's going on in the world, and then put your team together. And then a teamwork will make the dream work. And you get a little help from your friends like Congressman Reschenthaler, Senator Stefano, State Rep Warren, and Charity for All, Grimm.
True story about budgeting that I think you might find interesting, Russ.
Yeah.
I mean, 28 and a half years at the Herald Standard, and a good 10 or 12 of them covering county government, right? Yeah. I covered, it was a particularly tight budget year. I don't know the exact year, but Fred Lebder was still a county commissioner.
Okay.
And Uncle Fred, for those of you who don't know.
And they were having budget hearings. And so I covered these because these were just when all the row officers, one by one, would march into the commissioner's office to have a budget hearing on their needs.
Yes.
And what was
their wants.
And they all come in and they all say, well, I generate this much money from work that they do in my office, and I want to keep this much, and I can afford to give the general fund this much, or however that would work. Or I need 3 other people in my office to do this because we're so short-staffed, right? So all the department heads, and that would be like the tax claim bureau, the assessment office, the bridge department, plus all the row officers would be like your recorder of deeds, your clerk of court, your prothonotary. One by one, they came in this particular day, and I'm sitting there covering it because I wanted to hear what the state of the finances were, and if they were going to make a request of greater funding, what was their justification? This is what we talked about earlier about you then forward this information to the people so they know what's going on. Particularly rough budget year. One by one, they all came in to plead their case about why they needed more people and why they needed an extra hand here or there, a staffer, why they needed more money for this, that, or the other thing. And Fred said, and this is no lie, he said, we have a tough budget year here. We have decided that you're going to lose one person from your office. But wait. Look, you're going to lose one person from your office. It's a done deal. This is the way it's going to be. We're not going to raise taxes. You're going to lose somebody. No. Well, you can do one of 2 things. You either pick them now and tell us who you want cut, or by the time you leave this room, we will pick one for you. That was hardball stuff, man.
Yeah.
That was hardball stuff, and they didn't like it.
Well,
but guess what? It happened, and none of these offices went belly up, right?
Yeah.
None of them went belly up. So I never forgot that instance of just wielding it right there on the spot and saying, we're making the decision. No amount of lobbying, complaining, wailing and gnashing of teeth is going to change our minds.
How many times do you hear a politician, whether they're a candidate newly running for an office or they're running for re-election, I'm going to run this office like a business.
Exactly.
And businesses will cut staff if need be. So why is it so hard? Look, we all hate to see people lose their job.
Sure.
We don't want people to lose their job.
But we also don't want a bunch of political hacks either.
Correct.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, if you look at the federal level, some people are mad about it. DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and that's a whole new thing. But you know what? The stuff that happens in D.C., it takes a while to trickle down. But how about the Office of FOGE? I presented this at the Reagan Republican meeting, the Fayette Office of Government Efficiency, and you nailed it. Every budget can be cut. And you just said, hey, when I first went in there, we didn't raise taxes my first year. We cut, if you remember, Paul, because I was just adamant, and I was using my power as a minority commissioner not to raise taxes, and they wanted to do that in the first year. We actually cut back my first year. You can check the record. So I proposed at that the last Reagan Republican, which is a political action committee, and to create an office where we look at everything, freeze spending, and we got to cut. Listen, there's 3 things you can do with a budget. You can, 1, keep it the same. 2, you can raise taxes, or 3, you can cut taxes.
Yeah.
There's only 3 things. You go to Harvard or Wharton School of Business. That's the only three things you can do with a budget. I'm glad you pointed that up. And another thing about that, going back to that trail thing, the commissioners issued a press release. Dave Lohr was not in on that, and because he voted no against that. But I wanted to get back to real quick, Paul. Wilma Lewick asked me about FOIA, and I know you filed many of them. Could you explain how people, if they want to get information from their government?
Freedom of Information Act, by the way, is what that acronym stands for.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
FOIA is the federal for if you want federal information, like I would write to HUD when I covered the Housing Authority. A Freedom of Information request, you can do it. Most of them now have a form that is available on their website that you can download, or to help you guide you through the process of what you're asking for. I used to just write my own, basically, you can request documents. You can request stuff that is readily available on expenses and anything that's spent. Now, some stuff you couldn't get, like Secret Service information, or I want a list of all the FBI cases that are currently pending in Fayette County or Western Pennsylvania or something like that. There are some certain things that are protected from being revealed, and there's exceptions, they call them, to the FOIA.
I'm going to add to you and go back to it.
And but the state is covered by the right to know law. So there's 2 different layers of request. Anything covered by the state.
What about the county?
The county would be the right to know law if it's because it is binding on entities in Pennsylvania, government entities, agencies they call them. So that would be a housing authority, that would be your county commissioners, that would be your school board. Anything that's a public agency in Pennsylvania is bound by the right to know law.
Townships, cities, towns.
And you, again, a lot of them have a form that they prefer you fill out on their website available. What are you requesting? And it's good to be specific when you request something. You have to give them, like, I want all the emails between Sean Cavanagh and Russ Rhodes between January 1st of 2025 and the current date, or all for the last 3 years, 4 years, whatever you want.
Right.
And that way they can nail down what they need to give you. My favorite part of ending those, I'd like to write my own. I got my advice from a guy named Dave Morgan, who was the Pennsylvania Newspaper Association attorney at the time of the Housing Authority. And he gave me a lot of good tips on how to write an effective right-to-know letter. And I would write them and I'd send them to the Housing Authority.
Boy, did you find out some good stuff.
And he would say stuff like, at the end, the standard language was like, if you choose to ignore this request, please state your legal objections in writing.
Yeah.
And that puts it back on them to give you a legal reason why they don't want to give you, how many hours Russ Rhodes worked here or what his salary was and that sort of thing. So one's a federal, one's a state, but they essentially do the same thing. The federal was a little bit better because they had like 5 days to respond at that time. I don't know, they were more responsive to it because it was a federal thing.
So, Paul, if you could, great researcher, we'll get those forms. I'll put it on my Facebook, or you can put it on your Facebook, those forms. But here's the thing. For example, you have a right to know the county budget. You have the right to know where all the money's going. You have a right to know who all the Section 8 landlords are at the Housing Authority and how much money they get. And what Paul would find out, well, there's a pattern here. Well, this guy's got 50 Section 8 certificates. Well, maybe Russ only had one. He would, find out the money. Where's the money going? And if you didn't know that it was a federal investigation that I helped Peggy Gursky, forget the one gentleman, big dude, went down to D.C. and we went to HUD. So, people out there, you have a right to know what your supervisors, your school boards, you have a right to know. It's your money. So thank God for the right to know. Thank goodness for FOIA. We'll put those forms up there. But you know what? Get out there and ask you have a right to know how your money's spent. And thank God we have those laws.
Well, one of the things we crusaded on at the paper when I was still there, and it eventually did come to fruition, found out, requesting Larry Roberts records, that the state legislature was not covered by the state right to know law. They exempted themselves.
Oh, not
and it was like,
isn't that special? The church lady would say.
And we actually, this is another thing. The paper spent money. I give them credit. During my era, they spent money to file a lawsuit. It went to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and I was sort of the plaintiff in that because you have to be a person. So I was requesting the phone records, and they didn't want to give them up. And we lost because the law said that the state legislature passes this right to know law, and it's binding on everybody we just talked about. School boards, you got to tell people how you're spending the money. County commissioners, yes. Housing authorities, yes. But legislature, no. They're now covered by the right to know law. Wow. It's not utilized as much as I think it should be, or could be because of the lack of newspapers. But that got changed, and we were leaning heavy on that.
So we'll put that.
By the way, the county budget is for our listeners out there is listed front and center on the front homepage of the Fayette County website, which is FayetteCountyPA.org. It's right there, front and center. I was there today.
Right, and you need, if you want to break it down, that's the big numbers. But if you have to break it down, you can get detailed numbers like what's Russ, how much Joe Schmo is making.
Are the prior years listed too?
Yes, not all the. Not every, but it does go back a certain amount of times. You can go back.
But there might be details like you want to know how this office is spending the money, how much the payroll, what are they spending the money?
But you see how time-consuming that could be.
Sure.
If you want to go line item by line item and just look at the last 4 years, it takes time. And
it does. The budget I think is 45 pages long.
Right.
Yeah, and I crafted eight of those. Well, the other thing back to Penn State I wanted to talk to. So the big problem, if you read the articles, Penn State, which is an amazing campus and is one of the richest campuses or colleges in the world. By the way, where did you go to school, Paul?
Penn State.
Penn State. Okay, my daughter went there, my son. And the fact of the matter is that we might be a rural county, but there's things we can do. First of all, I have to say that there's one person has taken the ball of Penn State, and it's Charity Grimm-Krupa. I appreciate she met with the president along with Ryan Warner, but she's been putting on pressure. And, but we still, look.
She's proposed legislation to, not necessarily prevent it, but steps that have to go through.
Well, yeah, and Penn State is so wealthy. Hey, listen, I love Penn State football, and they're putting $700 million. And I know that's funding is coming from this group or that group, but people are raising money and giving it to Penn State. $700 million to remodel the stadium, $110,000, $50 million for naming rights. We got to have some priorities, but come on, alumni. But here's the thing: Fayette County is a rural county. What's the title for the Penn State? It's a land grant university, which means it receives federal money, state money. But to close Penn State Fayette is a psychological blow. It's an economic blow. So there's one thing that I want out on the table there. There is one person in this county that can help Penn State, I believe, and she's the biggest landowner in the county. She's on the Forbes 400 list. I've talked to state representatives and John Frick about this. We need our legislators. I would ask Charity and Stefano and Ryan Warner, go to the wealthiest person. Remember who funded Penn State before all these great things. His name was Robert Eberly. And I don't always agree with Robert Eberly, God rest his soul, but he was big friends of Joe Pa, and he put a lot of money into Fayette County. But when you have this population loss, so I propose that our state legislators go see Maggie Hardy. I don't know her last name now. She got remarried. And, this lady, she has her father was a visionary. They got gambling. Great. Because Joe Hardy wanted it. And they built that resort. Like, what did they say? I read $500 million they've put into the property in the last so many years. I would ask, talk to Maggie Hardy. Ask her for her help. It's right next to the Joe Hardy Airport. And you're right about expanding the airport, but that's how you get things done. Maggie Hardy has power. She has stores all across America. One of the things that I propose, maybe Maggie could put some money into the university. I think, Russ, you talked about dormitories, if they close some of the universities, but if she could contribute some money, and then maybe she did this to WVU. But hey, Fayette County is important to Maggie Hardy, and people come from all over the world to her resort. So meet with her, ask her for her help. She's got power, and she could probably call the president if she wanted to talk to the president. So that's what I did with Congressman Murtha, and Murtha made it happen. So charity for all. John Frick, I know you work with Pat Stefano, and, let's not full court press. And where is our Congressman Reschenthal? And I know, Guy, where are you on this? Come on, they're receiving state and federal funding. But we need a maximum pressure effort here. If we lose it, it's a big blow to us.
And I'll also add, we can't leave it up to the politicians and the business people on this as well. I mean, we as private citizens need to step up as well, contacting Penn State main campus, the president's office, and say, hey,
writing letters.
Yeah.
You're
right on that. I just want to add, write letters, call them, full court press.
What I would say is that what you're advocating is not unique to what's going on in Western PA. The New Kensington campus, people are doing the same thing, right?
Yep.
The
Allegheny campus.
Exactly.
The
so they're all
Beaver
saying
campus.
How critical their branch campus is to their local area. However, if you look at the list, most of the ones that are in trouble are in Western Pennsylvania.
Yes, they are.
Okay? And this goes back to the population loss. It should surprise no one that Fayette campus is in trouble enrollment-wise, because this trend has been going on for the past 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Projections are done. Uniontown School District knows how many kids are going to be graduating in 12 years because they can look at the size of their first grade class. So to act as though this is some big surprise, and this goes back to being proactive.
Yeah.
What you've talked about earlier. Now everybody's up in arms about how much they care about Fayette campus and the problem, but who couldn't see this problem brewing? I mean, when I was at Fayette campus in 1976, it was booming. I don't know how many students were there, but it had to be well over 1,000, probably close to 1,500. I mean, there were a lot of kids there because we had a lot bigger student population. Laurel Highlands, Uniontown, graduating 500 kids a year back then in the 70s, as I recall. You know, I was at German. We graduated like 125, 126. We were the smallest school in Abergaunton School District, right? So, you know, to not know that your population is going down and not look around at your high schools and say, hey, we're losing a lot of students here. Do you think somebody might have said, we better look out for Fayette campus at this point?
And I'll add on to that, Paul. This is not the first time we've heard Fayette might be closing. You know, this is the closest we've come to it where we're hearing word from actual, state college. But we've heard this rumor for years.
Yes. And again, I remember Joe Hardy. I met with Joe Hardy several times. I actually worked for him. I was a busboy in college, and then I think the year later I became county commissioner. I worked up at the Golden Trout. But Joe Hardy one time said, you need a benefactor. So Maggie Hardy has the power, but, you know, is that our job? But you know what? Why can't we go up and ask? She's created a lot of jobs up there. It's a beautiful place. Yeah, they got tax breaks and things, but, you know, get together, meet with Maggie Hardy and say, you know, hey, what can you do? And so I implore our state legislation contingent to meet with her and ask her for her help. I mean, you know, it says on Matthew 7, ask and you shall receive. But if you don't ask, you're guaranteed to get nothing. She's the largest landholder in the county. And how many jobs up there? I have no idea. It's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of jobs. Probably 500. I don't know if it's up to 500 to 1,000. You know, but, you know, again, they wanted gambling. They got it. Mr. Hardy, Paul, you know a lot about that with the legislation, all the moves they made, but they did what they had to do to put a full court press. There's a casino up there, but you know what? We can't lose Penn State. So please, I implore John Frick, if you're listening, tell your boss, talk to your former boss, Pat Toomey, but let's do what we got to do. You know, we were talking about taking some calls. You know?
Yeah, we are running out of time. 724-438-4593. If anybody has a comment or suggestion or whatever, you want to join in on the conversation, you're more than welcome to. I know we don't have much time, but we'll squeeze you in.
And, you know, again, we need leadership. We need our lead. You know, Charity Grimm got on there, did a video. I think it's like 20,000 people viewed it, got on there. So I appreciate the fight. And but let's, you know, just fighting is not enough. We have to win. We have to save Penn State. And, you know, we got to transform the university into manufacturing, healthcare. We already have Charity's daughter goes there. She's a nurse there. My son is in the engineering program at New Ken. You know, transform that to medical, manufacturing. Russ, you talked about build some dormitories. If you close some of them other ones, hey, we got to fight. We're battling our other counties to keep this university. Right. Let's put together the best package. And I'm telling you, the one person, because we've done everything we can do. But if you use that power and influence of Maggie Hardy, the business titan, 84 Lumber, man, that could make something happen. We got to do that right now. Are you listening out there? That's creativity. That's economic development.
My plug on that would be, you know, why was Fayette campus created in the first place? It was to provide kids like me an affordable option to pay for college and get through college. You could live at home for your first 2 years and get your foot in the door and spend 2 years and save money, which a lot of the kids that I was there with were in that same boat. You know, your families aren't rolling into cash. I mean, none of us were really rich or anything like that. And my best friend's from Edenborn. His dad's a coal miner. We were both there. He was studying engineering. I was going to be a journalist. And it was a vital to many success stories.
And you worked part-time?
And I did work part-time. But you know, if you go to if you look at it as a way of fulfilling your obligation to disadvantaged communities, right? There's no, in my view, the argument is there's no higher calling or no better demonstration of your commitment to that than keeping Fayette campus open. Because look at Fayette County, look at all the metrics that Sean has talked about, the high poverty that still is there. the lack of opportunity, the need for affordable education, it's all there. And the tuition is enough, I think, for people to pay these days for Fayette campus as opposed to when I was there. And if you can save that room and board, it really gives a lot of kids an opportunity for what I will definitely say is a first-class education. I mean, my time at University Park, the 2 years I was there working on the Daily Collegian newspaper, were life-changing experiences. There's no doubt about it.
And there are excellent professors, instructors,
They were excellent
up there then as they are now. So you are going to get a great education, and with the possibility of moving forward to the main campus up in State College.
And some of them, like for nursing, is 4-year program out there now, right? You can get that there. You know, that's one of the few jobs that's growing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You nail it. Nursing is, hey, listen, you have to have leadership. And I didn't say it. Einstein said it. I'm going to quote Einstein because I'm not an Einstein. But Einstein did say that imagination is more important than knowledge. You have to be creative. Two guys got together in a garage and built the most powerful company in the world, Apple, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So with creativity, shrug these roles. Let's quit messing around with the bullshit. Bull crap.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was going to have
that finger was on the button.
Let's focus on what make things happen. I mean, 84 Lumber is a success story. We talked about the oven guys. We talked about Heartland fabrication. And there's many, many other stories out there of people succeeding in Fayette County and selling their goods and wares throughout the world.
Not just the county, just not the state, but the country and around the world.
We make ovens that are in South Africa.
Yeah. I forget the company, but it's my understanding that they developed a special concrete that is used by NASA on their launch pads because it lasts 10 times longer than traditional, holds up to the heat. It was developed here in Fayette County.
A lot of things, and the Big Mac too. Let's not forget the Big Mac.
That's the most
Mr.
important.
Delegati, rest in peace.
That's the most important. That's my favorite.
So the bottom line is, we wanted to give a little state of the county. I guess we don't have any calls. We talked through it. We'll come on now. Brian Mrazek. Mrazek. He doesn't want Penn State to go. He told me he's up there, and I know he's listening. He does not want Penn State Fayette to leave. However, he does not want Penn State to ever beat Ohio State. So, and that's our goal, we hope. But again, we'll come on. I want to thank Russ. I want to thank WMBS. Thank you, Paul. Honestly, I'm not blowing smoke. Paul's one of the smartest guys, and you don't win these awards because, and it's not that he's the smartest guy, but one thing, the grit and determination of investigative reporter under threats. I mean, Paul got threats too. We all did. So, we didn't even get into the voter fraud and how I proved that 30 years ago going up in the nursing homes. Another Paul won, 100 awards for that one.
Not that many, but I would agree with Sean, like WMBS, and I think Brian is under his leadership is doing a fantastic job filling the void in terms of news, and I think it's a go-to source. I mean, it's great that you guys at least cover the film the commissioner meetings and live stream them so people can see what's going on. That's very, very important.
And archive.
Sean will tell you that when we started to cover them at HSTV, that they were really, really popular.
Here's a question for you.
And by the way, I just want to add: have county commissioner meetings after hours so working people can attend.
Well, but this goes to that. The county Zooms the commissioner meetings. So you can go on the county website. You can join in on a Zoom meeting and see the same thing that WMBS, just two different platforms. The county does not archive those meetings. You can't go back and watch it later that day, let alone next week.
Right.
Why?
It should be.
They archive other meetings that they Zoom. They archive the prison board meeting. And
it can't cost that much to archive them.
But they don't archive the actual commissioners meeting.
Why? When I was commissioner, I proposed to have all meetings televised and with the help of the Herald Standard. What was that?
HSTV was doing that without your approval.
No, but
Sean.
I wanted them to.
Well, a lot of people wanted them to.
We had meetings after hours. When you're having meetings during the day, you're hiding. Let the working people have a meeting at 5 or 6 o'clock like we did. And we actually took meetings around the county to get people involved. But guess what? They don't want They don't want to have meetings after hours. They don't want to be recorded. They don't want to be held accountable. And, Jefferson said this, again, I quote the great guys, if the people do not pay attention to public affairs, then I, the judges, and the assemblymen will all become wolves. Remember what Jefferson said. So you need people to pay attention. But WMBS, at least they're archiving it. And I think, hey, it's a matter of survival and doing good. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, though, Facebook has changed their policy and things are disappearing after about 30 days. Unfortunately, I don't know why.
Yeah.
So that's why all the more important that the county should step up and archive these meetings.
And I want to say one thing. Rob Kismarski doing a great job. The Uniontown guys. It's unfortunate what happened out there. I just wanted to say the players, that wasn't their fault, but you should have those kind of playoff games. I just wanted to shout out to Rob Kismarski. Have the games at neutral sites. And when playoffs are in line, things get heated. You got to have good security. So I don't blame the players, but unfortunate what happened there. But I know that made national news, and Brian's been on Fox TV and everything. But but anyways, I don't blame the players. The WPIAL needs to change the way they do things.
Okay.
Sean Cavanagh.
Sean Cavanagh.
How much time left?
I'm closing up right now.
Okay, well, thank you again.
Sean Cavanagh, Paul Sunyak, thanks for joining us here on this special edition of What's on Your Mind. Of course, brought to us by ACS Roofing.
Special edition. That sounds cool.
Yeah, there you go. So, having said all that, CBS News is just around the corner. They're going to bring you the news from, around the world, around the country, and then TJ DeStefano in here with the local news, sports, and weather. This is WMBS Uniontown at the Tone. It's going to be 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by O'Reilly Auto Parts.
I'm Cammie McCormick. The Atlantic today released the transcript of the chat by Trump administration officials discussing details of an upcoming attack on Yemen.